against control decks as well. So
one thing about Shaheen, and I know you probably know this since you guys have top aided a couple of invitationals together.
Yeah.
He top aided like 5 in a row, I think the number was. But as per control decks, be it in Legacy or in Standard, he's always very proactive in his approach. He always plays creatures. He's never super reactive. Like, he's not the guy who's going to do like the Cunio style, which is like an elixir and nothing.
Yeah, like me and Shaheen kind of come from opposite schools, where I was all about the like minimalist win conditions, just grind them out. And Shaheen is kind of doing that, but he is like expensive sorcery master, right?
Yeah.
According to Kenji Samura.
Yes. Yeah, that is his nickname.
Yeah, so we see him draw an Aetherling. Like, yeah, that's not surprising that that's in his deck. He has 2 copies of Elspeth as well. You know, like I said, 4 Blood Barons. He wants to control the game, drop a bomb, and just ride that to victory.
Yeah, that's always been his approach.
Yeah.
When he plays these type of decks. He's always been playing Blood Baron. He's played Bramaz before. He's got 1 Aetherling in his main deck. You know, he just always plays creatures, and he always jams, too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm always like against 4 untapped mana, this could go like pretty poorly for you, right?
Yeah,
like
what are you going to do, though? Wait?
Yeah, it can get countered and they can resolve their Jace. And he's like, no, jam my Jace right now. Turn over 3 cards. It's going down. 2 lands versus a Gainsay. I'll take my land so I can cast my expensive sorceries.
Yeah. I mean, if Jace gets countered, next turn you jam a Blood Baron. If that gets countered, maybe next turn jam an Aetherling or an Elspeth.
That's how he's always battled. Looks like Shaheen has to discard. He's going to discard Attention Sphere and pass the turn back over to Meier, who will draw a card here. Now, Meier's got 5 mana. He's got an Archangel of Thune, so he's taking a proactive approach as well.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Like, not really a card you see a lot of people side in these mirror matches, but there is a lot of value to waiting until game 3. Your opponent sees that you have very few creatures, if any. Almost certainly all the removal's gone. You even saw Shaheen discard a Detention Sphere, which could potentially answer that Angel. But having something that can just attack Planeswalkers, regardless of what the creature actually is or what matchup it's there for, is potentially very useful.
It really makes casting the Angel easier when your opponent discards an answer to it.
Yeah, you got to feel pretty good, right?
Gonna take Jace up. Will Soorani. Gonna play his 5th land on tap. Now there's a Blood Baron, so the race is certainly on here, as he will pass the turn back. And you can see Shaheen's hand. He's got a negate over there, so he's got a little bit of reactive permission, but he also has an Elspeth and he has an Aetherling in his hand as well that he can work his way towards. But players are playing creatures now, and they'll be getting into the red zone as Meier's going to play a 6 land. It will be a Plains. This is 6 mana. This can maybe be an Elspeth. It is. That's going to tick down. That'll take care of the Blood Baron, and now Jace will take a little bit of damage there. Of course, the Coverstone effect makes it so that Archangel is a 2-power attacker. Jace will not die, however. And now a little bit of life gain. That'll trigger and pass the turn back.
Yeah, things worked out pretty well for Josh. Like, Shaheen took the shields down for a couple turns, allowed him to resolve an Elspeth. He got to Elspeth away the Blood Baron before his Angel grew to 4 power. So he got to keep his Angel in play, too. So overall, I think Josh probably likes his spot.
What kind of gets interesting now is that Shaheen has, I believe, a 6 land Elspeth in his hand, so he could play Elspeth minus it, take care of the Archangel, but then he would actually, yeah, he would lose it to the Mutavault.
Yeah, he would. Yeah. Jace would shrink its power by 1, but Elspeth would only have 1 loyalty, so.
So he's actually got some thinking to do. He's probably in a situation he wasn't prepared for, which is my opponent has like a creature.
Yeah.
And is being proactive.
My opponent is jamming, just like I am. How do I deal with this?
This is normally what I do now. I believe Shaheen has another copy of Blood Baron in his hand, so he could play that and then it would not die. So that is probably pretty appealing. He's also looking at this negate in his hand, but I don't think that's the kind of game we're playing right now.
Yeah, he's behind on board. I'm not sure he has the luxury to sit back on negate. Like he very much, if he gets to play a threat and hold up negate, that's great, but I don't think he has that right now.
If you're in Shaheen's spot right now, you've got the option between Elspeth and Blood Baron. Which one would you want to play?
Also has the option of Aetherling.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to play Aetherling with those shields?
Looks like he does.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it puts him to the test right away.
It puts him to the test. It gives you an unblockable way to attack Elspeth next turn. You don't have to think about like, oh, well, next turn I like jam my Blood Baron into his Mutavault, and then like you have to keep trying to kill this Elspeth while Josh is also making tokens. So I totally understand Shaheen's line where he's just like, I'm going to play Aetherling and then, just try and kill it. Just try and get it off the board. If he Supreme Verdicts, if he kept those in, then he has to kill his own Archangel. If he wants to Elspeth and minus that, he has to also kill his own Archangel. So
it's kind of interesting. Maybe a slight misstep there from Josh where he didn't activate Elspeth first. And he attacked with his Archangel first. Sure. So now his tokens aren't going to be 2/2s.
Well, I think he was going to play Supreme Verdict. So
okay.
I think he just wants to keep the tokens that he is going to make.
Now the big question here is that what Shaheen wanted to have happen? Did he play Aetherling and decide that one, I'm going to play it and hope you don't have an answer, or was it, I'm going to play it, and if you have a Supreme Verdict, I'm okay with that exchange, and then I think that I can beat this Elspeth plus the soldier tokens?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know how game 2 played out. Like, it's possible that in game 1, Josh didn't see any creatures, and then game 2, Shaheen beat him with creatures, and then he brought the Supreme Verdicts back in.
Sure.
So Shaheen wasn't necessarily expecting him to have that. I'm not sure. You know, maybe he saw him in game 2 and knew that he had them and was planning for that to happen.
What's also kind of interesting, too, is that, yeah, he can play this Elspeth, hope that his opponent doesn't have Dissolve or Negate or any sort of reactive permission, and his Elspeth will actually be climbing faster than the opponent's.
Yeah.
And that might be a big deal here because we have seen, you know, the Elspeth race is a very real thing in this situation. Shaheen's at 5 and Meier's is at 2. So Shaheen's ahead in the Elspeth advantage. Yes, his shields are very down right now, but maybe this is a spot that he wants to be in.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is certainly a lot of merit to just being the first one with an emblem, right? And you see Shaheen also has another Elspeth, so maybe by the time he gets to have an emblem, he'll have another couple lands, we'll be able to play Elspeth with Negate open, and then he'll be able to have an emblem and start making more soldiers, and it'll be very tough for Josh to win through that.
Mutavaults are getting fired up and coming into the red zone, so we'll see how Soorani does want to block here. He looks like he has some interest in maybe double blocking a Mutavault in this situation, but he will consult his hand first. But it looks like Josh is going after Elspeth here, so she needs to balance about how he wants to kind of do things now.
Yeah, do you want to trade with a Mutavault and then trade with a token, let Elspeth go down to 1? Now Josh is ahead in the Elspeth war. There's also some merit to just like shump blocking the Mutavaults and blocking a token. And then your Elspeth takes like the minimal amount of damage. You get to untap, play Blood Baron, and Josh can basically no longer attack your Elspeth.
He would have to minus his Elspeth, and actually it would leave to get Blood Baron off the table. So Josh does up it, so he should have 4 soldier tokens total. So we do, actually, excuse me, 5. So we have the appropriate amount out here.
2 are tapped, but.
Yep. So Shaheen is going to activate his Elspeth. Plays an Hallowed Fountain untapped, take a little bit of damage. And this could be the turn that you talked about, which is a threat plus negate up.
Yeah. And I mean, we saw last turn the shields were down and Josh didn't commit to his board. He was kind of forced into attacking with those Mutavaults to try and get ahead in the Elspeth war.
But now he might have to take down Elspeth, and if that happens, Shaheen may lose his Elspeth, but he might be happy about that. So it looks like it's going to be a spell. It's a spell that's uncounterable. So Josh wants to be careful how he wants to tap those lands. That's key because he probably wants to fire Mutavault to take care of that Elspeth. So these verdicts that he maybe took out and brought back in have been very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if Shaheen considered this line where if he gets verdicted, his Elspeth is going to be at 2. Like, he definitely could have prevented a little more damage last turn. Well, I guess Josh would have still had 2 Mutavaults, so maybe it didn't change anything. And plus, he has a backup Elspeth,
Yep.
so.
With negate backup as well.
Right.
So now we're back into like the Elspeth sub game where Shaheen's is still ahead. He's at 5, Josh is at 4. So you have to imagine Shaheen still kind of likes his positioning here.
Josh does have that Mutavault, though, which kind of changes things.
Yep. Now, one card Shaheen has in his hand that we haven't even talked about yet is Sphinx's Revelation, because it hasn't really been that kind of game at this point. And he does have that in his hand kind of at the ready if he needs to refill. We don't know if Josh has one of those or not. We don't have a great look at his hand. This is going to come to the red zone. The soldiers are going to trade very, very quickly, as they often do.
It's been a slugfest up until this point. Both players just tapping out, trying to establish a better board position. And at some point, these players are going to run out of gas. And I like being the guy with Sphinx's Revelation in that spot.
On the upkeep, Josh is going to cast his Rev, but Shaheen has a negate for it. So that's going to get countered, and that's probably pretty big right now.
Yeah, that's a big deal, but I do like Josh's play of waiting until the upkeep, correctly reading Shaheen for having a counterspell and making him tap mana on his own turn.
Shaheen's going to play a Jace. He's going to take down his Jace. You're going to see 3 cards here. 3 lands, a Plains of Hallowed Fountain, and a Temple of Deceit.
Do you want to scry, or do you want 2 extra cards with your Revelation next turn?
I think it's 2 extra cards, and the reason for that, you'll notice that Shaheen for this turn, as he does take up his Elspeth, he drew a Dissolve.
Yeah.
So I think he was actually just looking for a land.
Yeah, just an untapped land.
Yep. And he found one. So actually, taking those 2 lands and actually playing a Plains may seem like, oh, who cares? That's not anything. And I saw the cards that you took to your hand, so I know you have a Hallowed Fountain in your hand, but having a counterspell there is actually a really big deal. It's time to get in the red zone with Mutavault and 3 soldier tokens, so we'll see how Soorani does want to block here.
Is he playing the same game where he just wants to slowly tear away Josh's board position, just like trade away those Mutavaults, lose some loyalty, but over the course of the next few turns, that's probably loyalty that you would have lost anyway if you leave that Mutavault alive.
You can see Soorani's hand right now. We know the 3 cards. It's a Rev, a Dissolve, and a Hallowed Fountain. Now he needs to decide how he wants to block. Again, as you mentioned, we saw a couple turns ago where he double blocked a Mutavault with 2 soldier tokens and then just, threw a soldier away to the other one. He'll lose some loyalty in the exchange, but is it more important to get that Mutavault and that mana off the table? He definitely prioritized that before, and it looks like he might be doing it again.
Yeah.
That's what he does. So Elspeth is going to go down to 4. Soldier token will go away. And so Josh is winning kind of the Elspeth sub-game right now, but Shaheen might be winning the overall game. It feels like he is.
Yeah, you got to imagine with him having a revelation and a counter spell and now a second revelation.
See what he wants to do with this Jace. Looks like it goes up.
Yeah, his Jace is alive. He's losing the Elspeth sub-game, but he really doesn't need too much help here. Being able to remove Josh's Elspeth before it gets an emblem would help him a lot, because then Jace would be able to keep all of his soldiers under control. But it's hard to say if Shaheen even needs that when he has 2 Sphinx's Revelations in his hand.
And we saw a Sphere that he discarded early in the game, so you have to imagine that he has more of those.
Yeah.
To draw to get that Elspeth off the table.
Yeah.
It would take care of his Elspeth.
It would. But I think if you are able to Revelation for something like 8 cards and you have to use a Detention Sphere that gets rid of your own Elspeth to get rid of your opponents, that is a fine trade to make. You almost certainly have enough cards, like enough ways to win the game aside from the Elspeth. But Shaheen also does have 2 copies of Banishing Light in his deck, which will allow him to get rid of that Elspeth and keep his. So.
There's an Elixir. And now here is a Rev. You see Shaheen is only going to do this for 4, leaving a Dissolve available.
Yeah, and I like this. I mean, you could jam the Revelation for the full amount, which would be 7 cards, and if it gets countered, that's fine. You still have a counter spell plus another Revelation. But I don't think Shaheen needs too much help. I think he is fine just saying, like, if Josh has a counter spell, I'll counter it. If he doesn't, then I get to draw 4 cards and I'm still probably winning. So playing the game very, very carefully, which I like.
Dissolve takes down Dissolve. A Sin Collector is Shaheen's draw. He's going to tick down his Jace, maybe. He's not too sure. He can't push the Brainstorm button with this one, which is what he's been known to do. You see a Blood Baron and 2 lands get turned over, so Blood Baron's going to go to the grip here pretty quickly. So let's see what else he's got hiding out over there. It doesn't look like very much.
A Gainsay, a Sin Collector, like some stuff that is generally pretty useful, but not really in this situation.
Soldier's going to attack. You have to imagine going after Elspeth, so there will be a trade there very quickly. Again, Shaheen has not activated his Elspeth just yet, but the emblem is looming. Shaheen's counting, okay, how much damage would I take if you made an emblem right now? The answer is 15, which is not 16 for you math whizzes out there. But he has to do some careful planning here. It looks like he's going to lead with Sin Collector. Yep. Wants to see what's going on over there.
Ooh.
I think that was a copy of Aether Spouts.
That looked like an Aether Spouts.
Yep, he has 2 in his main deck.
That is awesome.
It's a little bit of brewing there. We don't see that one a lot.
And kind of for good reason, right? Like, it is pretty easy to sniff out and play around.
Yeah.
But not when no one in the format plays it.
Yes.
And that's got to be great for Josh.
For each attacking creature, its owner puts it on the top or bottom of his or her library.
No matter which one you choose, not that great of an option for you.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like that card's going to see some play. Maybe after rotation. I don't know what kind of home, like, it's a really unique card. It's not like anything we've seen before, and it is kind of easy to sniff out, but it's also like, if you try to sniff this out and you're wrong, and you're like, playing around it, and it's just like, dude, I don't have that in my hand. You should be attacking me with all your creatures. It can be tough to play around at times. So Shaheen, basically, this turn has gummed up the board. Like, he activated Elspeth, he played a Blood Baron, he's left counter magic open for his Gainsay, he played Sin Collector to clear the path. Now he knows that, okay, I have to worry about an Elspeth emblem. You saw Josh activate his Elixir and go up to 30. And right now, he can beat an Elspeth emblem. Well, he can die.
He cannot die to it.
I'm not sure if he beats it. He doesn't die, though. And we're moving in.
Yeah, I mean, Josh just got his last card Sin Collected. He's kind of behind on board. His opponent has Blood Baron, which can take away some of the loyalty from Elspeth next turn. So I think, the getting's good. This is your chance to make your emblem and potentially try and win this game.
You don't want to play a longer game, right?
Not at this point, no. I don't think Josh is too set up to do that.
I feel like you got to attack with everybody, probably. I don't think that leaving back people does anything. Yeah. get in there for a whole bunch. It'll be 15. He's actually going to go after walkers.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
If
Like,
I'm Josh, I want to go after him.
It is nice to get those off the table, but I guess he still has lethal damage next turn. Shaheen gains 4 off the Blood Baron, and he still has enough to kill him, so...
Shaheen's going to deal 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points of damage to Josh. Josh is going to play an Azorius Charm. We'll see if Shaheen has any interest in maybe countering that. It looks like it might just be a cycle, so that's fine. Shaheen's going to gain a little bit of life, go up to 14. But this Revelation actually puts him out of range of dying.
It does now, but I'm not sure Josh was too concerned with that. You know, he just wanted to get the Planeswalkers off the table, and then he knew that he still had lethal damage next turn. It is just unfortunate that Shaheen just happens to have the second Revelation.
I think Shaheen might be considering casting Jace this turn instead of just moving in on the Revelation, even though he does have protection for either one of those spells with a Gainsay. You can also see the other 2 cards in his hand. It's duplicate copies of Fiendslayer Paladin.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, anything that attacks Planeswalkers is generally pretty good. Like, we saw how much trouble Josh's Mutavaults were giving Shaheen in the Elspeth War, and it's like, can you imagine having a first striking Mutavault also in that situation?
This is going to be a ref for 6 on the upkeep. Play around counter magic. It's going to resolve. So Shaheen's going to go up to 20, which means he's not facing lethal. He draws 6 cards, gains 6 life, which is oddly enough the more important of the 2.
Yeah.
And does still have that Gainsay, even though it looks like he picked up a whole lot of lands there. So he's still not out of this one yet, as here comes 15 damage.
Yeah, so down to 5, but Josh is in no real danger of dying. So Shaheen still needs to find an answer, even though, you know, he ended up living probably a turn sooner than Josh would have wanted.
Wow, I think he may have drawn 6 lands. Okay.
Well, we still have a Jace activation, you know?
A temple he could play before Jace.
Yep.
To put a bad card to the bottom.
Certainly true.
He has a Sin Collector that he can lead with if he wants to do that to make sure the coast is clear. But I don't know if he has enough mana to do all of those things.
Yeah, and still draw into something that allows him to live.
Yep.
Detention Sphere is almost certainly the best card that he could have here. So that's pretty cheap. You know, maybe... Like, Josh has seen 2 fresh cards. He got to cycle the Azorius Charm plus a draw step, so you don't know what he could have. And if you do end up playing Jace, finding a Sphere, and, you know, you just run into Josh having 2 counterspells, like, that could be disastrous.
The other thing we don't know is how many Detention Spheres Shaheen has after sideboard.
That's true.
He discarded one pretty, you know... I mean, it was early in the game, but it was just like, yeah, nothing else to discard. I'm obviously going to discard this.
Yeah, but you saw that was his one piece of interaction as well. Like, the game has gotten to this point because Shaheen could not answer Elspeth, so you got to think, like, if he didn't have very many copies of that in his deck left, he might value that a little more highly.
Temple of Silence is going to put the top card to the bottom, so that's clearly not something he's looking for, assuming he gets to resolve Jace and activate it. So it looks like he has separated his mana, and he has come to some sort of a game plan here to try to get himself out of this rather sticky situation.
Yeah, it does not look like he has enough mana for Sin Collector, Jace, Detention Sphere, plus Gainsay.
Yeah.
He is one short of that, so you have to make a concession somewhere, and it looks like it's going to be on the Sin Collector. We're probably not going to play that one.
All right, it's Jace. Are we fighting over this? We're not. Are we going down? We are. Thoughtseize. Mutavault, Thoughtseize. Those aren't Detention Spheres.
Yeah, those are not any help to the current predicament.
Those are going to go to the bottom. This is a Sin Collector to clear the path. Take a look. Supreme Verdict is the card that's taken. It's a Plains. So he didn't draw anything of relevance. Here's an attack for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And oddly enough, for Shaheen, if he had played Jason upped it, he still would die on the attack back because he'd be taking 10.
Yep.
He's already played a land for the turn. Yeah, and all he can do is concede the game. He
And
can't
that's
get out
it.
of it. He's going to turn over a couple of cards, the Mutavault, Temple of Enlightenment, but he ends up losing to the Elspeth Ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, Josh had the opportunity to go Ultimate with Elspeth, took it, and just Shaheen couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
Two Sphinx's Revelations, countless Jace activations, some temples doing some scrying, and he just couldn't find what he needed.